Hello, this is Dutch Football Podcast number 38 from Football-Oranje, and I, Michael Statham, am joined by Michael Bell and James Rowe this week to discuss PSV and Ajax in the Champions League, Netherlands against Germany in the Nations League, and there's some Eredivisie chat thrown in there too. We're available on YouTube, SoundCloud and iTunes. Subscribe to our platforms if you're new, and give us a big thumbs up if you enjoy listening today. Okay, James, Michael, we're going to start by talking about PSV against Inter Milan. It's in the Champions League this week, and it's almost the first chance that we really get to see PSV against an opponent in the Champions League that they have a realistic chance of beating. Away against Barcelona, they were close, but it was a 4-0 defeat. James, I wanted to ask you first what you think Inter Milan will bring to the tie. We were saying that PSV got a good chance at home against them, but Inter Milan are an easy side to beat, are they?
No, they're not. There's been heavily invested money put into Inter Milan in the recent years with the ownership. They've brought really well and they have a good manager in Luciano Spalletti. But I think Inter Milan, as you saw with the 2-1 win against Spurs in the previous match, I think their strengths lie at home in Milan. And I think away from home in Europe, I'm not so convinced. And I think with PSV being on the road that they're on, and with Van Bommel having a point to prove, especially abroad, I quite fancy PSV to win this match. I don't think it will be a comprehensive win. I think it will be possibly 2-1 to PSV. But I mean, Inter have some good players. Handanovic is a good goalkeeper, and Icardi and Stefan de Vrij we know as well. But I just think home advantage will see PSV over the line in this tie.
How do you think PSV will look to target Inter? Who do you think Inter's weaknesses could be on the pitch?
I would say I think their back line. I don't think they're very mobile, and I think with the pace of Bergwijn in particular, I think they could cause Inter some problems. And I think, as I said before a few minutes ago, I think that Inter at home in the Giuseppe Meazza is a completely different animal to Inter away from home. So I think with PSV's organisation, in particular their pace, I think that will see PSV over the line. Okay.
Michael, I was going to ask you about PSV's chances in this game, and I think all three of us are quite optimistic that they could get a result here. Do you think we'll see a PSV similar to that we saw under Philip Cocu when they were last in the Champions League with Cocu?
No, I think Van Bommel was pretty much stated that he is sticking with the system that he's using now. He doesn't see any point in changing it just for one game when he's been working on it all season. His players know it the best. He's got to stick with a 4-3-3. And he'll know that if he has any chances of getting out of this group, that this is a game that they need to win. And I don't think they'll be scared of Inter Milan. I think they'll go on the attack from the start.
Okay, but you know, you're looking at Inter Milan's more dangerous players, and the likes of Perisic, other likes of Hendricks, a really inexperienced Rosario, and a more attacking Pereira. Are they going to deal with this threat coming from the middle?
I mean, it's hard to say because I've seen Dutch clubs crumble in the past, but I think what PSV have done this season so far is they've gotten a front foot in games. You've seen it, won 7 out of 7 in the league, and against Barcelona they handled them for much of the first half, and it took something sublime from Messi, a free kick which Zook could do nothing about, to break deadlock in the second half. They ran out of steam a bit. But I think in a packed out Philips Stadion, Champions League is back in Eindhoven, and I think you're going to see a PSV team up for it, and it really depends on Inter Milan, who they've struggled at times this season. They lost at home to Parma. I know they've won 4 on the bounce, but they've brought in a lot of new players. They might not have gelled yet, whereas PSV are more of a unit, and I think that could work in their favour.
Okay, fair enough.
James, do you think it'll be 2 on PSV?
I do. I think with home advantage, and as Mike rightly says, I think that they're chomping at the bit. I think, as you know, in the summer podcast we did, I was a little bit apprehensive of Van Bommel taking the role, but I have to eat humble pie already in terms of the way that he sets his stall out, and in particular how he addresses the media, and you wouldn't think that he's only been managing for a short amount of time. And when you listen to him address the Dutch media as well, you can tell that he's played at the highest level, even in the small details in describing anticipation going into games, what exactly they have to be looking at. Like, for example, when they played Bati Borisov in the qualifying rounds, he was the Dutch media were pretty much saying all you got to do is turn up. To which Van Bommel said, no, you couldn't be no wrong. Bati Borisov have got more Champions League experience than what we've gained in recent years, and that may well prove to be telling. So he's very, very smart, and I think it's given PSV a new lease of life. And I think same goes for Ajax as well as PSV. I don't think, even though we're pleased to have two Dutch sides in the Champions League, it's pleasing as well that neither of them are going to be completely written off in terms of making progress, whether that be going into the last 16 or even continuing in the Europa League. All scenarios are possible, in my opinion.
Great, yeah, I think that's a good time for us to now talk about the second Champions League fixture involving a Dutch club this week, Bayern Munich against Ajax. Is this going to be similar to what we saw with Barcelona and PSV, and are Bayern going to simply overrun the Dutch side, or are Bayern's weaknesses being shown more this season? Why are they not succeeding so much in the league?
I think it can be partly down to their manager. This time last season he was manager of Frankfurt, and although they won the German Cup, I do believe that certain characters and certain personalities fit certain clubs, and Bayern Munich is massive. They failed to win their last two domestic matches, and I think that Ajax have a chance. Bayern are not what they were. This is not the Bayern under Jupp Heynckes, and I think they have a chance to. I actually think this game is going to be a draw. I think the result for Bayern Munich away from home in Berlin, away to Hertha last Friday, which was a shock, they lost 2-0. I think they may well have taken Hertha Berlin a little bit too lightly. And I just think with the belief that Ajax will have, and especially getting such a good result in the first match against AEK Athens, I think this game is going to end up a draw. I think it's going to be 1-1.
I think you have to take those results a little bit more carefully, though. Bayern drew with Augsburg at home with a weakened side, and many of their best players were on the substitutes bench. And the 2-0 defeat away at Hertha looked a little bit more like bad luck. Hertha scored with their only two shots on target. But still, yeah, no, this is not the dominant Bayern that we're used to seeing. And even though they're still atop the Bundesliga, looking good at the moment, it's not the Bayern we'd seen recently where they'd run away leaders straight away. Michael, what do you think Ajax will bring to this match? Do you think that they'll go for a more defensive tack? Even though Erik ten Hag doesn't tend to do that, and he says that Ajax should stick to their guns, is this one where Ajax do need to take a little step back and be a little bit more defensive?
Well, if you look at their side, they need to be more defensively solid, but you're wondering how Ten Hag does that. You could go with a back five with, hopefully Frenkie de Jong will be fit for the tie, then he can sort into the defence. But I think a big plus for Ten Hag is having De Ligt back. If they had gone into this game and Ten Hag had decided to put Frenkie de Jong alongside Daley Blind in the centre of defence, I think that would have been an absolute disaster. I don't share James's optimism so much about this game, just merely because of Daley Blind in the centre of the defence. I think Bayern Munich will have been criticised in the German media after not winning 2 games in a row. I think in this game they're going to want to show something. And I think Robert Lewandowski against Daley Blind is a mismatch, and I think he get found out. And then Mazraoui on the right, I think he could also be a target for Bayern with their wingers. I just can't see how Ajax haven't been great going forward this year. I know Klaas-Jan Huntelaar, he struggled at the weekend and he was replaced by Dolberg, who came in and got the crucial goal. But I can't see how Ajax can really score enough goals to maybe get a draw, because I think Bayern are definitely going to score at least 2, I think, in my opinion. And then you're just hoping that Ajax can somehow find some space in behind and maybe target Jerome Boateng, who's a weak point for club and country at the moment. But I think overall, I think Bayern just a bit too strong for Ajax, and the strikers are going to be too good for the Ajax defence. I mean, they struggled with Luc de Jong and they're really going to struggle with Robert Lewandowski.
I wonder if Niko Kovac knows his best Bayern team, because when you look at the lineup of who they've included in their starting lineup so far, it's been a huge difference. And Bayern Munich always used to be known, especially when they were really successful, as there were very few changes, and they always had an awful lot of width, and they always serviced Lewandowski. And I wonder, with the changing personnel on such a regular basis, including subs, I wonder if Niko Kovac knows his best Bayern Munich team. I don't think he does. And I think with Hertha Berlin winning last Friday, yes, there were some very good Bayern players on that pitch, but Hertha Berlin still managed to win. And I think so long as Ajax show no fear, I think if they show confidence and they're well organised, they could well get a draw. But we shall see. We shall see what will happen.
Yeah, it's a good point you say about the fact that the Ajax will have a chance, and that the midfield on their day is one of the strongest in Europe. You've got the likes of Ziyech, Tadic, De Jong, who are just very dynamic and can play through most teams. But as Michael says, there are weaknesses in the defence, and they were heavily exposed against PSV. And when Ajax lose their heads and aren't as focused on the pitch, they just crumble. They fall apart. The attitude isn't there. They get frustrated. And I wonder if the same thing might happen here. Perhaps not. It's a Champions League. They'll all be switched on. They're all there for that exact reason, to play with Ajax in the Champions League. But let's see how they get on, and let's see how long they can hold out for. And they're always capable of scoring a goal. All right, so that's Champions League covered. Now, PSV and Ajax both have chances to do well in that competition. Let's move on and talk about the Dutch national team. The fixtures are coming up thick and fast again. And we've got a Nations League fixture on the 13th of October on the Saturday against Germany. James, would you like to talk just a little bit about the Dutch squad, the Dutch selection, and what do you make of the changes in the selection this time around?
I think there are changes where Koeman is casting the net wide. I advocated on previous pods that we've spoken about when speaking about the national team that he needs to cast the net wide, and in his preliminary squad, to select Bijlo, Rosario, Groeneveld, I think he's wanting to see them a little bit closer up. I think he's wanting to handpick bit by bit, and I think it shows that he's enjoying the role and he knows what's asked of him. I think as well, the players that have been selected have all been doing well so far this season, which is a good sign. And I think it's about selecting the right team, and if they do select the right team, I can see them beating Germany in Amsterdam. I was at the previous match against Peru, and although they went 1-0 down and it was a little bit bitty at times, they came back to win, and that showed a lot of resilience. And I think you're starting to see shoots of resilience come through now, where Koeman is selecting a squad based on form. He's trying to mould a team that will compete, and it's still going to take a long time, as we know only too well. But I think it sends a good signal out, in particular to Rosario and Bijlo, that if you play well in the domestic league, then you'll be studied and you'll be looked at. It's not necessarily that you have to move abroad in order to play yourself into the Dutch national team setup.
Yeah, agreed. There's some interesting selections again, and it just shows that Koeman wants to rotate his options and pick different people and see what they're about. And you can see that with Bijlo, Rosario. They're not ready for the first team yet, but they're there for the experience, and they're there to see if they're ready in the future. Michael, we had a question on Twitter about Germany, and Dolwyn here asks, how do you beat Germany? How can you beat such a world force? Now, they were embarrassingly knocked out in the World Cup, but this is still a really strong Germany side. We already spoke about a couple of the players. They're playing for Bayern Munich. So how can the Netherlands possibly beat this German side?
By not being scared of them. I think if you saw at the World Cup what teams did to them, Korea hit them on the counter, and Sweden basically got in their faces. I think that's what you need to do. You can't sit back and just hope and defend and hope that you're going to get something out of it. You need to take some on the front foot against them. I think Germany have always had this sort of aura that teams will just be too scared of them. Again, at the World Cup, you saw, Mexico went at them, South Korea went at them, Sweden, I know they got beat in the end, but they also had a go at them, and that's what you need to do now. You need to actually realise that the Germany national team right now is probably at its lowest point in a few years, and you need to get into their faces, attack from the start, don't just sit back and defend. And we've got the players to do it. You got Memphis up front, who's in good form. You can have a midfield around Frankie de Jong. Dominate possession, have a goal. If you get maybe 1-0 down, if something goes wrong, don't be scared. Don't just go back into your shell. Just keep attacking them, and then hopefully, Netherlands haven't beaten Germany since 2002, and it's about time that ended. And you saw against France that they drew 0-0. Holland had chances against France. We lost against them just 2-1, but we created enough chances to maybe get something out again. I know Memphis hit the side net, and when it could have been 2-1. Koeman's creating a good atmosphere in the squad at the moment. These young players coming through. Netherlands are getting back to somewhere where we can start competing again, and I think in this Germany game will show, and hopefully show that we're back amongst the better nations in the world if we can get a win here.
Yeah, too right. I think it's probably the best chance of beating Germany since 2002 as well. And I'm really, really pleased to see Frankie de Jong make his debut. I thought he was outstanding against France, and if he starts again here, his dynamism and his pace to switch the play, it just speeds up the whole team, and it makes Memphis Depay, the likes of those kind of guys who are quite pacey up front, they can really have that effect because they've got someone feeding them constantly. And I just think that players like De Jong will make that difference now and give that almost fearlessness, because it is only their first appearances for the national team, and De Jong doesn't really speak about nerves, and he has great confidence on the pitch. Let's just hope that he can play with someone like Bergwijn, someone like Promes, who doesn't have that fear and can really try and open up Germany and create some chances.
Yeah, I think Bergwijn's got to be in the squad. What he's doing at PSV right now means he should be national team level, even ahead of. I would put him, if I was to pick either him or Promes right now, I'd go for Bergwijn. He's in much better form.
Interesting. James, what do you make of the chances then against Germany? Do you think there's a realistic possibility of beating them?
Yes, I do. I think that's primarily because it's not the Germany we know. There's lots of new players coming in to the national team setup. Peterson from Freiburg and a couple of others as well. I think Joachim Low is once again giving youth a chance. But it's not the Germany that won the World Cup, for example. It would give the Netherlands a big shot in the arm to win. Going back to Frankie de Jong, obviously I was at the Peru game where he set up Depay for his goal, and it was a fantastically weighted pass, and he hadn't been on the pitch for very long, and to have the confidence to play a pass through, and you could tell with his teammates as well, all realising what a wonderful pass it was to get them to set the goal up to get them back into the game. As Mike said, I think there's togetherness there now, and there's competitive nature. I think also what's very telling is you used to get, when squads were announced in the past, players signing off through injury or illness. You don't really hear about that now, because everybody wants to join up with the national team squad. Everybody wants to prove their worth, and everybody wants to be included in the starting lineup. Right
then, quick prediction from the three of you. What do you think? Netherlands, Germany. I'm going to go with 1-1. James?
2-1 to the Netherlands.
3-0 hammering to the Netherlands. We're going to absolutely stuff them.
Right, on that note, one last question about the Dutch national team, and it's from S_Van Den, and he says, Davy Klaassen is on the radar of Koeman now. He's playing regularly for Werder Bremen. He certainly doesn't want to see Strootman and Wijnaldum together in the midfield again. Davy Klaassen then, yeah, he's had a decent start in the Bundesliga, but is he ready yet for the Dutch national team?
I don't think he's ready yet. I think because he's suffered for being out for such a long time, and having Sam Allardyce as your manager, who doesn't really understand the way he plays would never give him a chance to prove his worth, and he was sat on the sidelines for a very long time and he wasn't injured, and that must drive you a little bit round the bend. I think he's building himself back up again, and I think he will eventually be included in squads. But I think you have to remember with Statham and Wijnaldum as well, I think Stahleman's transfer to Marseille will do him the world of good. He said himself he wanted a new challenge, and for the size of a club that Olympique Marseille are, I mean, they're arguably the biggest team in the whole of France in terms of history and pedigree. And I think that transfer will do him in particular the world of good. I think you'll see him improve. And I think Liverpool as well with Wijnaldum. I think obviously Liverpool made a fantastic start to the Premier League. I think both Wijnaldum and Statham will still be included in future squads. I don't think they'll be cast aside just yet. But I think if Klaassen continues to play regularly for Werder Bremen, I think he'll be called into future squads. Yes.
I agree. He's not ready yet, but I think if he continues to impress in Germany, he'll come back into it. I think Klaassen's always one of these players that I think's done quite well for the Dutch national team, especially when you compare him to someone like Strootman, who's been awful. And I think if he can get his form back, yeah, why not bring him in? But I'd personally rather see players like Donny van de Beek get a chance, or Tony Vilhena. I think these are the real future of the national team.
Personally, I think David Klaassen's quite a limited player. Yeah, he hasn't played terribly for the Dutch national team, but I just think the quality's a bit lower. We just expect more from the likes of Strootman and Wijnaldum just because of who they play for. I think Strootman has generally been actually quite awful for the Dutch national team, but whereas on the other hand, I think Wijnaldum's been unlucky. He's not in the system to suit him. I think if Koeman can get Wijnaldum playing a bit further up towards a striker, then you might see a different Wijnaldum and a more effective Wijnaldum. But I think on a final note about Klaassen, I think Javailo Dilrosun, I know he plays a different position. He's a winger, but I think he might be closer to the Dutch national team than Klaassen. What an impact he's had at Hertha Berlin, signing from Manchester City in the summer, only just now playing sort of professional first-team football in the Bundesliga at such a high level and making a great impact.
I agree. It seems that Netherlands seem to go through patches of certain positions, and it seems like wingers right now in Netherlands are producing stars after stars. You got, Memphis, Bergwijn, Promes, Berghuis, Dilrosun, Danjuma, Grunewald who's come into the squad, and then even look at Idrissi for AZ. He's been on fire so far this season. Then you got Calvin Stengs to come back. There's so many wingers, and it's hard to leave some of them out sometimes. You got to wonder where Koeman's going to fit them all in.
That's right, and yet we speak constantly about the lack of a striker and having to play Memphis in that position, and only Luc de Jong and Wout Weghorst are the strikers we can call upon at the moment. So it's really frustrating, isn't it? Before the Dutch national team finish for another month or so, they also have a friendly against Belgium on the 16th of October. So 2 good fixtures to watch out for with that. Final topic this week is the Eredivisie, and we had 4 questions in just about the league, and I think the first one I might put to you guys is about Groningen. Jordan asks a question about them and says, are they serious relegation contenders? They've had an insipid start to the campaign.
For me, they have to be if they're only 1 point off the bottom. I know they got a confidence-boosting draw against 10-man Utrecht today, but the way they've started the season under a new coach has not been promising. They've got so many young talents, and a good squad. You think they would have enough, but something seems to be going wrong there. I think a lot of people are asking for the coach to go, and then maybe Ron Jans to take over. I know he's just the director of football at the moment, but it's hard to see how they're not going to be dragged into something, because I think, as we've said before in Counters Pods, that there's so many poor teams in the Eredivisie this season that 7 or 8 of them could get dragged into that relegation battle, and Groningen are one of them.
Yeah, I think they are a candidate. I think Groningen's start to the season shows what a step up it is from the Dutch second division to managing in the Eredivisie, which Danny Bels has found himself in. It's a huge jump, and I raised the alarm that of the 6 vacancies that were filled really, really quickly in the summer. I think mainly down to financial restrictions and making sure all the budgets are in check. I think that some clubs, when they made their made their managerial choices, made them a little bit too quick. And I think in the case of Groningen, you could say that that's definitely the case. Obviously, with the what happened in midweek in the Dutch Cup, there are calls for the chairman Nijland to resign, and it's a very unhappy camp, and it'll be interesting to see if they do dispense of the manager's services, who they would turn to. But yet, when Danny Buis was appointed, Alon Jans particularly said, we're going to give him time, we understand what this is all about, we know what we're looking for. And I think Groningen took a deliberate decision to hire Danny Buis, and I think they're deliberately going to stick with it. But should they continue to struggle, I can see them making a change.
Yeah, it's a surprise to see them do so poorly. I thought they had some decent midfielders and attackers, but I think there's been a lack of spending on the defence, and the defence midfield is a bit of a hole at the moment, a void filled with young players, and it shows on the pitch. There's a lack of bite, and yeah, even though they got a draw with Utrecht today, there's still many problems with them, and the cup defeat only made it worse for their season. Let's go from one struggling Dutch side to another. Utrecht, a question from Gareth asking, having seen Utrecht already replace their manager, could they have missed a great opportunity in the summer in not going for Maurice Stijn, the VVV Venlo manager? And James, you already spoke about how clubs are quick to fill positions this summer. Would Stijn have made a difference at Utrecht, or are they now in safer hands with Advocaat? We spoke before, just before I let you answer that question, we spoke before about Dick Advocaat only being a short-term solution for Utrecht and not a long-term one. But are they still in safe hands with Advocaat in charge, or was Stijn a huge miss in the summer?
I think Stijn was a huge miss, and I'm not just saying that because I interviewed him. It's quite clear that he's waiting for the right club. He's stated himself in the past and towards the end of last season that although clubs did come in, he wasn't entirely convinced. And I think if Utrecht had have come in, I think he would have took it. I think they missed a trick. I don't think it's healthy to appoint a manager, although he's vastly experienced, just for one season. What do you hope to achieve within that year? You know, you've got a youth setup which appears to have grind to a halt. You've got aspirations of European football, and I think it's a very strange decision. I think to deliberately only say we're hiring this manager for one season, and then we're going to look elsewhere. But yet when they appointed Jean-Paul de Jong, they were very much, this is for the long term. But I'll go back to my previous point. I really do think that the 6 vacancies we had over the summer, I think if you're looking from the outside, I think only Vitesse have got it right in terms of who they actually hired. I think the other managerial appointments that were made, I think they were all made in jest. And it just goes to show, if you just take your time and just relax and make sure you're getting the right man, it can make a huge difference. But I think with the way the Dutch FA are now on the clubs to supervise their financial activity, to make sure that everything is on the money, excuse the pun, I think clubs are being led by that. To give you an example, PSV Eindhoven published their books for last season, and they made it quite clear that they made a profit for the 7th year in a row. The profit PSV Eindhoven made only equates to £150,000. Doesn't equate to a profit of millions. Doesn't equate to a profit of an awful lot amount of money. But they were making sure that it was hammered home that a profit was made for the 7th year in a row by stating the exact amount. And I just think that clubs are now just a little bit too wary of their financial, not constraints, but their financial obligations to the Dutch FA, when they really need to start to think that, yes, that is very important, but they've got to make sure they're appointing the right manager as well.
That said, Utrecht spent a fair bit of money this summer buying players such as Gustafsson. These, I think it added up to about 4 or 5 million, their transfer spendings. However, they were keen to spend money on a manager such as Dick Advocaat, even though, he was free to manage, as opposed to going for Maurice Stijn, who might have been a cheaper wage. It could be that this summer Stein has yet another good season with VVV. They're having a good start already to this one. I have been impressed with Venlo, not going to lie. And Utrecht could then turn to Stein this summer. Who knows? But it would be a good appointment to answer Gareth's question.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not too late, and they could still do that in the future. They've got some good players there, and it's a very good club, and it's something that could definitely be pushed on with the right person in charge.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, this is a club that harbours ambitions of playing European football on a regular basis, and when they don't play European football, it's considered a disappointing season. But I think be interesting to see from Stein's point of view as well. I read an interview back end of last season where he said, this is his 5th year, and he wondered how the group and the squad would react to a 5th year of the same voice in terms of continuing to push forward. But he's also a very smart manager, and you also have to remember he's commuting every day from The Hague to Venlo, which is not around the corner. And obviously, very committed to family life. His son is also playing for the youth teams of ADO Den Haag, and will go on to have a professional career. I'm certain of that. But I think he's weighing up all options, and I think the convenience and the location of Utrecht, coupled with the ambition, would be something that may well turn his head for him to leave Venlo after 5 years.
Okay. The next question on Twitter comes from Cam. Hello, Cam. Do the stars of Ajax make Ten Hag look good? The loss to PSV and tie at the start of the season against Heracles, I feel, outweigh the recent Champions League success. Do you feel he can still get Ajax to the title this year?
Well, for me, before the season started, I said PSV are going to win the title. It's not really changed for me. I think some of the games have shown Ten Hag's tactical weaknesses, especially the PSV one, where he just seemed to think that Frankie de Jong and Daley Blind have been alright in defence in some of the games, and they'll do alright in this one, when it was clear from the offset that putting them two together against Luke de Jong was going to be a huge mistake, and that's how it proved. He got away with it against AEK Athens, basically because AEK Athens didn't turn up to attack. They turned up to defend, and Ajax were able to deal with their counter-attacks. Whereas if a team goes at them, and goes at them two, then you can probably beat them. And without Matthijs de Ligt, who, when he's not on the Ajax side, it shows that he is probably their best player, because they just look lost without him. Even things like picking Lasse Schöne over Donny van de Beek, whenever Donny van de Beek comes on or comes into the side, they just look so much better. But Ten Hag seems to be stubborn to stick with his choices instead of going with what's maybe best for the team. And we'll see how it goes for the rest of the season, but I've not really been impressed with him so far this campaign. I kind of agree that some of his players have got him out of it.
Yeah, I agree. The individual quality of his attacking players has certainly helped Ten Hag look a lot better than he really is. In answer to Cam's question, that certainly is the case. And as you said, Mike, the tactical awareness of Ten Hag isn't as good as I thought it was from his time at Utrecht, where he was very good and his formation really helped the team kick on. When Ten Hag first came in and started playing 3 at the back, it did not work. And he finally went back to 4 at the back, and hey presto, look, some better results. And he's very, very stubborn and likes to stick with what he's got. And then all of a sudden, he'll eventually give it up. And he looks like a fool to the media when he wins with a team that everyone can see would work. And playing Frank de Jong at centre-back, I'm not sure he'll ever do that again after that performance against PSV. Great on the ball, but if anyone puts anything near him in the air, it's not his strength at all as a player. That second goal, the ball came straight past his head, and he tried to head it and completely missed it. That's not the kind of player he is. He's not a centre-back. I think in future you won't see much of that. And if you do, it'll be in a easier home match where de Jong isn't expected to defend as much, and if it is, it'll be simple on the counter-attack with a through ball, say, and he's good at that. But yeah, I think de Ligt and Blint are a good partnership at centre-back. But to flip it on its head, Mike, who else would you play next to Daley Blind in that fixture against PSV with de Ligt out injured? Frank de Jong is still the better player, but maybe not a centre-back, and Persiers is only 18. is he the right person you just throw into that team, having not played with these players apart from in training, and just throw into a match like that? Who would you play next to Blind?
I think when you've got somebody like Luke de Jong, you took somebody that's going to head the ball a bit better than Frankie de Jong. You know you can expect crosses to come in when you're playing with somebody like that. And if it's Per Skurs for his debut, or it was Max Wöber, who hasn't really impressed since he got his big money move from Austria, but you know Ten Hag was asked about it after the game, well, why did you not put Wöber next to David Blind? And he's just like, well, we lost to PSV last year, that's not exactly going to do his confidence any good. Whereas even Rasmus Christensen's a big tall unit. You need to put strength against strength. Whereas he just thought, oh, Frankie de Jong's good on the ball, he's done well against AEK Athens, he'll handle it. You need to be a bit more smarter than that, I think. I think they've bought Skurs from Fortuna Sittard. He was great last year. I don't know why, if you're going to pay that money for him, why not trust him in a game like this? It might have given him the confidence, and then he might have starred. You just don't know. Instead of going for something that I think if you showed it to most people, it would have went, that's a mistake, before the game kicked off.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. He doesn't have that trust in the players that don't play every week. Does he trust Van der Beek against the bigger teams? And that's where it all comes in again about Ten Hag and how he deals with his players, and that's where the doubts start to come in. Our final question this week is again from Jordan, and it's about PSV. He would like to talk about the great form of Gaston Pereiro. How influential has he been under Van Bommel so far? I think it's been fantastic.
Yeah, well, his stats are 6 goals and 3 assists so far. Last season he was out of the side under Philip Cocu, and I think if Philip Cocu had stayed, he would have left. Van Bommel, who had him for a time at young PSV, convinced him to stay. I think in the summer there was some articles coming out saying that Van Bommel put his arm around him and was like, look, you're going to be a big part of my side. He's come in, he's went to the number 10 position, he's stayed there, he's not gone out to the wings, and he's been excellent. I think he's been great so far, and long may it continue, because I think he's one of our key players going forward, because you got Rosario and you got Hendricks behind him, more defensively minded. I think that gives Pereiro some more space to do his magic, and it's worked so far.
Yeah, I think he's had a tremendous start to the season. I think it just goes to show what confidence can do. And I think Van Bommel has just politely said, about his qualities and giving him a shot in the arm. And I think you're seeing him play with freedom. I think he's very happy at PSV as well. I think he wants to show his worth, and it just goes to show that with a simple tweak here and there and a kind word of encouragement, what it can do for a player, and especially with case of Pereiro scoring goals and making assists. If I can just go back on the Ten Hag point that was made previously, I concur with what Mike has said. I think he made some very good points, but I would like to add that Ten Hag also knows that he's under pressure to deliver a trophy this season. I think if Ajax end up trophyless, whether they end up playing wonderful football or they may end up making a good impression, it's 4 years without a league title. It's the pressure is on. So I think with Ten Hag, although he can be quite obstinate, I think he knows himself that he's got to deliver a trophy this year, or otherwise he may well be relieved of his duties.
Yeah, the pressure's on Ten Hag, and so far so good for PSV. It's been a whirlwind start for them, and they've been awesome. A lot of goals coming from them, and Gaston Pereiro is a big part of that. And the last part of what Jordan's question was, will De Jong reach 20 goals this season? And certainly, in playing in that team easily, just in the league alone, possibly. And De Jong's not even taking penalties. That's down to Pereiro, and it's good that he's a reliable penalty taker for that team. James, Mike, thanks for joining me this week.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.
A very good podcast once again, and talk to you both very soon.
Yeah, I look forward to it, and thanks for having me. It's always great fun as usual.
And come on in, Netherlands, let's beat those Germans.